Well, I've gotten several phone calls this week and questions about what seems to be a real surge in dairy cow culling and dairy cow slaughter to kind of kick off the year. So in this week's One Big Thing in Livestock Markets, we're going to take a look at dairy cow slaughter and culling, total cows numbers going to market, and kind of take a look at that from the first of the year through mid-February. So with that, if we really look at dairy cow culling in the U.S., we normally see large numbers go to market after the first of the year in January. Then culling or dairy cow slaughter really declines through mid-year and then kind of builds up again towards the end of the year. What's interesting this year is that in the first week of the year, the week ending January 9th, we had the largest dairy cow slaughter, over 68,000 head, in quite some time. In fact, that level of slaughter, there's only been 4 larger weekly slaughter of dairy cows in the last 20 years. So this was the 5th largest week in the last 20 years of number of cows going to market. If you're a history buff or been in the cattle market or cattle business for a long time, you'll remember the dairy cow buyouts in the mid-'80s. In fact, there's only been 9 weeks weekly dairy cow slaughter larger than what we had the first week of this year. You got to go clear back to the mid-1980s and the dairy cow buyouts to find a consistent pattern of bigger numbers of animals going to market. What's really interesting, though, I think, as we dig down into the numbers a little bit, we can look at regional cow slaughter. And Region 6 includes Texas and New Mexico. The Region 6 weekly dairy cow slaughter the first 2 weeks of the year were the biggest on record, going back in the data to the early 1980s. So we had some really large numbers of dairy cows going to market, and I think it's pretty likely that kind of the aftermath of the winter storm Goliath that hit the weekend after Christmas probably contributes to some of those increased numbers going to market. Although the region that includes California has also seen some larger numbers going to market, and I think it's really related to low milk prices in that regard, lower returns. It's maybe pushed a little more slaughter, a little more cow movement early in the year. I think what's interesting also to point out is if we look seasonally, after the first couple weeks of 2016, dairy cow slaughter really goes back down to basically the same level we saw in 2015. In fact, we moved about 2,500 head more this year through the first 6 weeks of the year than we did last year. So it's really actually very close. It's just the first couple of weeks of the year that are really intriguing in the numbers. If we go a little further and look at total cow culling, so dairy cows and beef cows, what we find out is that while we've moved a few more dairy cows, we've moved fewer beef cows, and on balance we're actually slaughtering fewer cows than we did a year ago. And if we look at the cow market's actually up since the first of the year about $10 a hundredweight, from $70 to $80 per hundredweight, really much in line with what we normally see seasonally from January to February and into March in terms of prices. One of the things I think we'll look out for in the coming weeks is that we'll take a look at dairy cow slaughter and see, is culling picking up or is it dropping off compared to a year ago, particularly with low milk prices and low returns. I think it's going to be really hard to expect a situation where we actually have fewer numbers going to market. If nothing else, I expect to see numbers pretty close to 2015 and maybe exceeding that as we continue to go into stretch into the year with some lower milk prices.